Creepy Uncle Joe can't help himself. Coronavirus numbers. Trump cleans house while Chucky Chum Spewer lacks logic. The Swedes still hate themselves. What's up, GHI peeps? Welcome to the new GHI Podcast.
Every town should have a Punisher. The people that have intelligence, that have open minds, they will still have an open mind.
Fucking life. Not a black person without a life.
To me, I feel like it's a little bit of a slap in the face to this country.
GHI.
Do you know what that is? Yeah, that's faggot. And Polish people all look the same.
Okay, for our first story, reported in the Washington Examiner by Anthony Lenardi. No way an AK-47 is going to take care of you. Biden dismisses founding fathers' quote on militias. Also, he called the 21-year-old woman a lying-faced pony soldier. Okay, Creepy Joe just can't help himself. Number one, arms are going to help the populace against the government. What he fails to realize is in order to wage the total war that he's threatening upon 100 million gun owners in this country, he would have to destroy his own infrastructure. He also fails to realize that probably more than half his military will join the other side and not fire on their own people. Because, I mean, most of the gun owners, most of these gun owners have or are serving or have someone who has served in the military. So it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to unleash the full force of the United States military on its own people, ever. These arms will protect them. And even if, let's say, you could, the point is you'd have to destroy your own infrastructure to wage the total war. And you're talking about tons and tons of marksmen who'll be using, they'll be less equipped than the army, but the average soldier is not going to be as good a shot as most of these citizens who are past military, hunters, avid gun owners, etc. Okay, this is insane, Biden. First off, you literally that statement alone is a threat to 100 million gun owners. You're basically saying you can't. There's nothing you can do. The government is in control, not the people. May I remind you, the government's only purpose is to serve the people and keep the control of this great nation by the people. Now, obviously, in modern times, government has taken a lot more, and this is not exactly the fact, but are we getting near a tipping point or a boiling point? Well, I'm going to tell you this. If front-running candidates like Joe Biden are going to threaten a bunch of people with military action against them and telling them that their gun-owning rights mean nothing because that if he was president, he would obliterate you. That's not a great way to get votes, pal. Another way not to get votes is by calling people that ask you an honest question, lying-faced pony soldier, to a 21-year-old girl. And now for our coronavirus update. Now, like we've said in other reports on this, data is varying. There's reports of people that are infected in this one area, then other sites don't show that. I think this is the best compiled site that we have right now for numbers. I'm gonna scroll up. I'm gonna put up a bunch of key facts for you, but let's take a look. Right here, coronavirus COVID-19 global cases by Johns Hopkins CSSE. This is the source that we've decided to start using to let you guys all in on this right now. As of right now, this was last updated. What is that? 7:13 p.m. So a few minutes ago. Today, 60,081 totally confirmed cases. 59,558 in mainland China, 175 other cases. We've said, this is hitting Hubei in mainland China. It's a landlocked little province. The most, they've already had 1,300 deaths but they've also had 3,441 recoveries. There's been about 5,905 recoveries and 1,361 deaths. As of the what I checked yesterday, there was 13 cases in the United States, ranging from California to Boston, Massachusetts. There was reports of cases in New Jersey, but now apparently they were confirmed, and now they're not confirmed, according to Johns Hopkins site here. So I'm not sure about that. The United States has had one recovery in Seattle, Washington. So we will continue to keep you updated. Now, coronavirus is very serious, and we hope people have a speedy recovery. But with the link of the pangolin as a carrier of the virus, the little anteater, this little anteater is ground up in China for some sort of medicine. I'm not sure what that is. So here at GHI, we can't help ourselves. Gaia's revenge, right? Meet Godzilla's East Asian cousin, Panguaiwu, which is pangolin and monster in Mandarin mixed up. So meet the world's newest monster.
As the night falls, in Midland, China, rises an ancient protector called by Gaia to punish man for his sins. The Revenge of Panguaiwu.
So there he is, new Panguaiwu, new monster. We'll be putting out some videos for the next few months. We've already had a request for a Godzilla vs. Panguaiwu. We'll see. I know a lot of you enjoy the GHI campy-ass videos, so we're going to continue with that. All right, so Trump and National Security Advisor O'Brien are cleaning house after the impeachment hoax, the second coup attempt. It seems the New York Times leaker from 2017 has been rustled out. We will report more as we gather more details. National Security Council will be downsized quite considerably, and this pissed off a bunch of Democrats. Most notably, Chuck Schumer, Chucky boy, Chuck Spewer Schumer, now wants to start an investigation into Trump's firing of all these holdovers, which, after everything that occurred, it would seem to be the proper way of handling it. Even if for holdovers that had nothing to do with it, better safe than sorry, okay? I mean, Chuck, you're a douchebag. But you know what? So is this week's highlighted douchebag, Republican pansy and now Democrat favorite, Mitt Romney. Okay, so I mean, come on, Chuck, what did you expect? Deep state's holdovers have weakened national security through leaks, mostly of lies, undermining the administration which they are supposed to serve. And the interests of the public should be foremost, which this is against the interests of the public to have a weakened front, having leakers, having people working against the agenda of the president. You can't have a department doing two different things. It totally weakens our national security, okay? Every administration has a duty to ensure that federal employees are not undermining the agenda of the duly elected president. Should have been done right away, but to Trump's credit, he waited until he was vindicated before doing this. Imagine if he did this right away when he found out that people were leaking and that people were working against him. If he just cleaned house right away. Imagine the media spin. Even though it would have been the right thing to do, the media spin would have been used to, like, as an admission of guilt, even though it would be the proper course of action. Now, this action is as simple and sensible. It's the thing to do. Still, Chucky Chump Spewer wants to go on with more nonsense. Boy, I think we found next week's douchebag. What do you guys think? comment below about what you think about terminating a bunch of these holdovers and downsizing the National Security Council. I think it has to be done. There was given no choice here. So, let us know what you think. Coming up, we're going to have our Mems of the Week, our Ballantine Award winner, and we're going to have a very special guest in studio to somebody that I've known for many years. He's a therapist and a pastor. He's gonna talk about self-hate and what creates it and what you can do about it. As a forward to our podcast discussion for the roundtable tonight, which you'll be able to see on Minds tomorrow evening. But first, I would like to talk to you about K.Carl Smith. K.Carl Smith, a very interesting man, the founder of the Frederick Douglass Republicans, a man with really great tactics and strategies for talking to other people about being a Republican, sharing your values, and basically bridging this gap and divide by sticking to the values. We're trying to get him up for March. Okay, we're very close to getting a hall. It's going to be a luncheon, like $25 ticket, fully fed, tricky trays, raffles, all kinds of stuff to try to pay for this. But most importantly, there will be a seminar and a talk by K.Carl, and that's what you're really there for. But we need about $2,500 to get him up here. Now, hopefully, we can cover that through tickets and the other things that we're doing, like the tricky trays and the raffles. But we still got to get them up here. So we're looking for donations in baskets for the tricky tray, like $25 baskets of any kind of items you'd like. Whatever we make on top of that is going to help K.Carl continue to go around the country and spread this message. Before we get to our GHI Podcast roundtable tonight, which we're going to be discussing Sweden's problem with self-hate, I have with me an old friend, a therapist, a man in the know, and we're going to ask him a couple questions about self-hate in general, because it leads to a lot of other. It's a destructive kind of thought pattern, but it leads to a lot of other destructive thoughts. Before that, though, we'd like to share our Ballantine of the Week. Heineken, fuck that shit. Ballantine Triple X Ale. Put some pop in your stock.
Hey there, girl, I'm the boy next door. The one with the six-pack rolling on the floor. Ain't got no rent, put on a few years. And I see you ain't reeling in your tears. Take it back, let's see where it goes. Stay out of the light, see where it flows. But don't let your love go out on me.
Whether you like him or not, Donald J. Trump defeats 2 coup attempts without the slightest evidence of impropriety. He continues to do what he said and campaigned on.
We can have a lot of fun with it.
And is doing his best to make America great again.
We're going to take our country back and make it great again.
For this, sir, you receive the Ballantine.
I think it would get very high ratings.
So, here with me is Mr. Yazdi Belhamji, a therapist, a longtime friend, devout Christian, a good father. Well,
in progress.
Always in progress, right?
Yeah.
So, I explained to you a little bit before what the roundtable is going to be about tonight. It's going to be about Sweden's self-hate problem.
Mm.
Now, I imagine that dealing with people that are struggling with addiction, among other problems, they deal with a lot of self-hate issues as well.
Oh yeah, man. I think that's pretty common for everyone, not just folks that are addicted, but I mean, every walk of humanity.
Sure. Real quick, what kind of suggestions could you give to the listeners if they start delving into this kind of destructive behavior?
Yeah. I believe you actually nailed it before in your comment when you said thought pattern. It starts with your thought pattern. So what happens is a lot of times we believe the lies that are around us. Sometimes, people tell us things. Sometimes we look in the atmosphere for things that are bad for our own self, I guess. And we agree with those things. So the best thing we can do is learn to take every thought captive into obedience. In this case, the obedience of Christ. Because, hey, how do we know what real truth is? Do we trust the person that's looking at us? Do we trust social media? Do we trust TV? Who do we trust? Who can we say, hey, this is the truth, and I'm going to believe this truth no matter what? So what happens is we all think. And to catch ourselves thinking is the important thing, because most of the time we're in autopilot. And when we do catch ourselves thinking, we'll catch ourselves thinking a lot of negative things, a lot of lies we start believing.
Well, if you start believing lies because it's the outside world is coming in on you,
Yeah,
and some people might be jealous or have their own issues,
right.
and that's just it's imprinting on you because
Exactly.
And is that partially because you're on autopilot, and when you get into your thought pattern, you're not prepared to deal?
Absolutely, yeah. First of all, you're on autopilot. Second of all, you don't know what truth and lies are.
Okay.
So when it's hitting your brain, you just kind of go into autopilot. Like I said, you gravitate towards what is most common and what is most comfortable.
Okay.
And even though it's negative, it's comfortable because you've been dealing with it for a long time. What happens is we have neurons, and we have these channels that are created, and the more we think in a certain way, those thought patterns get solidified. So the way to break free from them is to take the bull by the horn. First, catch yourself thinking. What are you thinking? Are you thinking the truth? Are you thinking a lie? And then push the lies away. And it's a very intentional thing you have to do. So it feels very uncomfortable. It feels very unnatural.
Okay.
However, that is the way. And the more you think towards the truth, the more your mind is transformed. And that's why scriptures say, transform your mind by the renewing of, transform yourself by the renewing of the mind.
So the renewing of the mind is kind of breaking those synapses that you're imprinting over and over by having those bad thoughts. So it's almost like having that meditation or that spiritual rebirth constantly.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
It basically smooths out that brain. It fills up those grooves, gives you a flat playing field, so where you can be in control of yourself.
Exactly. I mean, that's not the only thing, but this is the 30,000 feet view of this whole idea over here. So it gets a lot more in depth, and it's a lot more nuanced. However, I don't think we can get into that now.
Okay. Well, for the viewers out there, we've talked about it. We're going to have a full interview at some point.
Okay.
But really, Yazdi's here to catch up with me, and I'm just doing the show today. So he just wanted to, because this is his field, I wanted to get him in, get his perspective. Can you give the viewers some information in case there's somebody in the Elizabeth Linden area that needs some help?
Yeah, sure. So we are safeharborcounselingservices.org. I'll just pull up the website right now so you can take a look at it. We're on the web, and there's a 30-minute free consultation, so go ahead and book your 30-minute free. Can't tell you that's going to last forever, but hey, catch it while you can. This is what the website looks like. I don't know if you can see it.
That's right. What we'll do is we'll put the website up. We'll edit that in there, and we're going to leave a link in the description. Yazdi, thanks a lot for doing this today.
Man, it's awesome catching up, brother.
Yeah. So now, Memes of the Week. Ooh. Sports. Seton Hall report. Last Saturday, Seton Hall defeated Villanova, moving themselves back up to number 10, and Villanova down to 15. They beat them 70-64, and it was the first time in a very, very long time that they had defeated them in Villanova. So that's great news for the Pirates, keeping the pressure on. I think they've won 3 in a row now. As of right now, they are losing by 1 to Creighton, which is number 23, so it's a ranked team. It looks to be 14 minutes left in the second half, so running through there like, I don't know.
The Revenge of Panguaiwu.
Yeah, something like that. Welcome to the GHI Podcast Roundtable. This week's discussion with H is Swedes still hate themselves. Now, what's prompting the discussion was all the turmoil and outrage over this commercial that Scandinavia Airlines put out, right?
SAS.
SAS, yeah, that they've done nothing, they've contributed nothing to the world, and that they go out like Vikings and just take everybody else's stuff and integrate it into their culture, which not for nothing, that's pretty much how every culture works.
Yeah.
I'm sure they've invented something.
Well, everybody goes out and they take what they find and they improve upon it and make it their own.
That's what they do. And look at their longships. Look at that technology with the low drafts, being able to go into river systems.
Yeah, the Vikings actually had the best ships of the time period, the fastest.
The only thing that you could say, like, historically there's been talk that the beginnings of that were transferred by Phoenicians.
Yeah.
But so now we're talking, 1,500 years difference. So I don't know. I don't know what the self-hate thing is with the Swedes.
It's like self-deprecating, but it's you know what it is? It's playing. It's not like it's self-deprecating. It's almost like the media portrays white people as being the boogeyman now.
Well, yeah.
And to try to appeal to the all cultures, all races. So to do that, they're kind of like scapegoating themselves on purpose.
Yeah, well,
to basically make more money.
It
comes down to that again.
So what they're doing is they're selling out other people in their culture who haven't done anything to anybody and don't have the same means, so that a very few can get rich. That's the sinister. Man.
Really, with that commercial, I think what the issue that most people had with it was the fact that they had that black Swedish dude come on and say, "We're no better than Vikings were." going out and taking everything and bringing it back.
But at the same time, like the Vikings, the Norse and the Vikings are two different things. The Vikings were raiders. These were Norse people that lived a little bit out on the edges and the fringes. Didn't have the best land because there wasn't a ton of land. Remember, there was also the little ice age that destroyed the Greenland colony in the late stages of the Vikings. Now,
Side note: weren't the Vikings actually the first ones to discover America? Not Columbus, not.
well, they were the first, they were the first documented Europeans that we have documentation of that's solid, and we have a site. Now, granted, it's very likely that the Phoenicians were here because if you look at the register of the copper that was used during the Copper Age, a lot of stuff that's in Europe was taken from the Great Lakes region of the United States, or that's what the chemical analysis indicates, and also the mines there, and also the legends. I mean, up there is where you found some of the blue-eyed tribes and stuff. And remember, all it takes, I mean, their genetics could be mostly of the native groups that are here now, but it takes just two people carrying the recessive gene.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take like an entire culture transplant to make that happen. You just have to have two people with the recessive gene, which is not very hard to do if you think about it. So we had Yazdi Bellahumji on the show earlier. As a lead up to this, as a counselor, I wanted to ask him. He's a Christian counselor, and a lot of the problems that people have, whether it be drugs, alcohol, abusive behaviors, all comes from self-deprecation. And I don't think this is a healthy thing for the Scandinavian cultures as a whole to hate themselves. And I mean, look what
for any culture.
Well, sure, but they're leading the charge. They're leading the charge with this apologizing for being who they are.
So apologize to the Polish people.
Exactly.
For taking all our stuff and enslaving the Polish people during those times.
Yeah. While other European cultures were going around messing with other people, the Swedes were.
It is what it is. That's what happened in history. You can't erase it. You move forward. You don't dwell on it. You learn from it.
Well, as Americans, we believe in the excuse me.
But it seems like things just get dug up and regurgitated. Oh, this is what happened. This is what happened in slavery. This is why you have white privilege. Well, stop digging it up. Move forward.
Well, exactly. And a lot of times when people dig this kind of stuff up, they tell half truths, and that's and everybody does. Because the Nazi on the corner and the BLM guy on the corner are both spewing a bunch of bullshit, and that's just what it is. Yeah,
I'll tell you a quote from the February 4th. Some guy named Zuby. I have no idea who this is, but it's Zuby Music, right? He posts on Twitter, "Black man," and this is everything. This is what I've been thinking for the longest time, and I'm glad somebody actually opened up and said it. He says, "I'm convinced that 90% of racial tensions remaining in the West would evaporate within 5 years if lefties and liberals stopped racializing everything, stopped obsessing over and judging based on skin color, and stopped reopening stale historical wounds unnecessarily." Seriously.
Absolutely.
Constantly, over and over.
The whole point of the United States is to give power to the individual so that we don't have plebes. And this whole leftist movement is pushing to reinstate the old world.
They keep talking about white privilege and this and that, but you and
judge people on an individual.
Where's our white privilege? It's not white privilege. It's zip code privilege.
Privilege. It
is class privilege.
Of course.
Because the black man who lives in a rich neighborhood who has wealthy parents with connections, that black kid is going to do way better than any of us white guys.
Sure. And that just goes to show that we're really all the same.
Exactly. Whether you're black, white, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. It matters where you live and what class you were in.
But this just goes into that whole, soft racism of the left. The racism of low expectations. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's friggin' disgusting.
Oh, let me tell you something. I just got a new book today, and I wish I discovered this book years and years ago. It's called this guy wrote it like 30 years ago. It's called Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah,
You've seen that book?
I haven't read it, but yeah, I've heard
And
of it.
I started reading it, the first couple pages, and he brings up a very good point. He's like, the poor dad would say when he was a kid, he wanted to buy something. He said, "Oh, we can't afford that." But the rich dad said, "Well, what do I have to do to afford that?" So he starts going into the mindset of, if you already say, "Well, this is where I am, I'm screwed, I can't afford this thing, I can't move up from where I am, I live in the ghetto, whatever, because of this guy, you're making excuses, and it stops your brain from thinking to move out of that.
Yeah.
But if you think the other way of, well, all right, I was born black, I'm living in the ghetto, I live in a shithole, there's drugs in the corner everywhere, what do I gotta do to get myself out of here?
When you have that, and exactly,
And you have that mentality. And that's the mentality that
that gets stifled. That
gets killed.
if you keep pushing this kind of agenda.
Yes, you keep pushing stupid racial agenda bullshit instead of saying
You're stepping on somebody's neck.
Yeah, instead of saying, listen,
There's
do
a
what
way.
you gotta do. Bring your whole neighborhood up.
Mm-hmm.
All these people that try to do this, like even our own, whatever, the mayor of this town, he talks about this and that, but where was he for the past 30 years as a councilman? What did he do for his people in his ward for the past 30 years? Nothing. It's these fake racial nonsense that they play just to get whatever, put themselves in power. But you're not really for your people. You say you're for your people.
Well, they are for their people, but their people isn't based on skin color or culture. Their people are slimy, rich fucks that are trying to game the system.
Yeah, just like they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, so whether they're black, Hispanic, or white,
it doesn't matter.
They're all shites trying to,
It doesn't matter.
live off the government teach somehow.
All right. So we didn't talk too much about the Swedes, but we did have a little bit of a conversation here. Over to Minds tomorrow to find the rest of the podcast, all the extras. We're going to continue to talk here for a few minutes. Thanks for watching GHI Podcast. We'll see you next week.